we have.
If you don't mind, I just want you to hear something. Hi, my name is Sarah Delaney, and I'm from Hostos, and now I'm a New student. There's something that, as you were speaking, I just got some key things, that diplomacy and democracy is key, and it's very important. You should give people, as well as not only give people projects that are meaningful, but to participate in projects that are meaningful. And grassroots community life is so important. Governmental on a grassroots level, on a local level is very important. It helps you understand how things are done and how you can help your community at heart. Also, to continue to knock on doors and maintain the relationships that you build. Don't let them go. So one thing that I saw, and this is something that the Chief of Staff at Councilman Andy King gave me, and her name is Maisha Taylor, but it says, our deepest fear. She was honored for community service, and this is what she ended on. Our deepest fear. It's a quote that was used by Nelson Mandela, and it's attributed to him, but it's by Miss Marianne Williamson from A Return to Love, Reflections on the Principle, A Course in Miracles. You're one of them. A Bronx miracle. It says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We are born to manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. I thank you very much.
Thank you.
And this is very what you explained to us, how a kid from 182nd in the concourse can go far, everyone has that same opportunity. So take it and run with it.
Thank you. So this is what this other section of the workshop is about. It's one thing for us to say Elias is exceptional, which he is, and he's a miracle, which I believe that. This is wonderful. But it's so easy for us to be supporters on somebody else's bandwagon rather than ourselves. And so this section of the workshop is to teach you to tell your personal story. What we want to do in the Leadership Center here is have memoirs of students like Elias, like you, who know how to articulate your story, whether it's in a job interview, whether it's in writing, whether it's in your graduate studies essay. Whatever you're doing, you have to know how to form your personal story. So we have Dr. Noma Kofresi, who is going to facilitate this section.
Good morning. Buenos dias. You know something, I was sitting there thinking that Elias could have done the whole workshop. That you guys are so interested in his story and how he made it that we could have spent all day doing this and it would have been a benefit. Okay, now I'm charged, it's hard to follow him, but I've been charged to begin to help you tell your stories. And I want to start by quoting something that helped me when I was coming up. And I am a Puerto Rican from the island. I always say that, but I'm from the island of Manhattan. So I was born in Manhattan, but my family, instead of taking vacations, they moved to Puerto Rico. And when they got tired of being in Puerto Rico, they moved back to New York. So before graduating from high school, I went to 12 different schools. Okay, so it was my brothers and my sisters. They say that sometimes my father would wake us up in the middle of the night and say, "Pack, we're leaving." And it wasn't that bad, but it was close to that. And it was at a time when apartments were plentiful, so they could do that. So it had to do with my mother having a wandering, they're called wanderers, and she would be in New York, and she would tell my dad, oh, if we lived in Puerto Rico, we could have a little house, and we would have chickens, and I could have a garden. and my father adored my mother. And she would stay at that until he would pick us up and move us down there. But as those of you that come from any of the islands know, financial opportunities are rare. So we would get to Puerto Rico, and initially it'd be great. All the aunts and uncles would receive us. I would say bendición to everybody on the road because I didn't know who my aunt and uncle was because they all looked the same. I was a little girl at the beginning. So I would be walking around going bendición to everybody, and then it was time to head back to New York. Now, when Elias was speaking, one of the things that he said was that he would translate for his parents. He also said that he would go home, okay, and that these were in many ways tasks or obstacles. And I would say that children who have to translate for their parents have to grow up really quickly, right? How many of you translated for your parents? And you still do, right? Okay, so here you are, you're a little kid, and you have these important either medical people, social workers, legal people, landlords, and they're asking you questions. And you tell your parents, and then you translate back. And so you become this intermediary, and you start to feel important. But as soon as you go home, and you're feeling like you know a lot, they go, ¿Quién te crees que tú eres? Who do you think you are? Right? Who do you think you are? You get put right back into being a child again. Okay, now, my workshop is about who do you think you are? Who are you? You know, who are you and how you construct your story day by day. And the quote that I wanted to give you was one that inspired me in one of those visits when I was in Puerto Rico and I was taking a Spanish class, is by Antonio Machado, who's a Spanish poet, not from Puerto Rico, who said, Caminante no hay camino, se hace camino al andar. And what that means is, there is no set road. Okay, you make your road or you make your way as you're walking on it. Okay, and that goes to some of your questions to Elias, because the way he described it is, things are coming down from heaven. You know, he's walking along and things are just popping up. I don't think it happens exactly that way. What I think is that when you set a goal for yourself, when you say, I'm going to go to college, or I'm going to make something of my life, when you're walking along, doors open, people come to you, and you go. Okay, but when you don't have a vision of yourself as someone who can walk the road, I can knock on your door 70 times and you will not answer. Okay, how many of you have had that experience of friends, brothers and sisters, in my case a son, that you say, listen, if you go do this, you can do this other thing. And they go, too much work. Or they go, yes, but they don't get up on time. Okay, has that been a common experience here? Yes. Absolutely, but here you are today, right? You got invited to a leadership conference about telling your story, and it was raining. It was yucky this morning. I was coming and I said, oh, my hair's going to be a mess when I get there. Because, my hair freezes up when it rains. But I got here and you guys got here. And that tells me something about you. It tells me that you're on the road. It tells me that when somebody knocks on your door, or when one of those professors falls from the sky and says, listen, there is an internship opportunity, you're going to take it. Like you're going to fill out that internship opportunity for Washington. Okay? No matter how hard it is. And some doors you knock on, they open up. Some doors you knock on, and they don't open up. Like Elias said, he applied to law school, and he didn't get it. Right? Okay, but that meant that that wasn't his way. Okay, there was another way that was waiting for him. Okay, so in church you hear when one door closes, another one opens. Okay, hold on to that. Okay, hold on to that, because it's a different version of what Elias told you about. You hold on to the 5%. Okay, so if this door closes, there's these other 100 million doors that are there. And if you just start bemoaning the door that closed, you may not look at any of the other doors. It's like when a relationship ends. I'll never love again. Okay. Not true. Not true. You feel like that, and then you love again. How many have experienced that? So remember, the doors are out there, and unless you're on the path, you won't see them. Okay, so this is about being on the path, and the fact that you're here today tells me you're on the path. Now, I wanted to begin to ask you, why do you think storytelling is important? And storytelling, and in specific, telling your own story. Why do you think it's important? Over here.
My name is Esteban. What I believe is storytelling is important so you can inspire others, to pursue their goals.
That's right. You can use your story to inspire others, and I think that Elias was a very good example of doing that today. Why else?
My name is Gene, and I believe storytelling is very important because when you tell your story, you show the other person that they're not alone if they went through it, and that you could overcome anything you did, because if someone could do it, you could do it yourself, and then you get inspired and do more than you could do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Back there, I see another hand. In the back.
Yeah, I was going to say storytelling also builds empathy, and it draws people in because you're exposing yourself. Anytime someone exposes themselves, it brings people in to listen to what you've got to say, and it makes them hear you. They pay attention when someone is willing to speak personally. It just creates an interaction, and most of the time that's why they go to a person on the street to get their opinion, and it draws people in.
That's right. It's a way of us connecting. Okay, we connect to each other. We connect to our past, our grandparents, their journeys, but we can also connect to the future. Okay, now, I wanted to ask you if you were aware recently of somebody getting on TV and telling a story and it making a difference in the election for the mayor.
The son.
You want to say?
The son with the afro
Yeah.
turned a tide, almost like through social media, almost overnight. Everyone was talking on my page about his son and the afro, and just a voice. It was a small voice, but it got so big, and it made so much attention that it turned the polls almost overnight. In like just 3 to 4 days, everybody was talking about his son. And he's got a daughter too, and they're trying to get her up in there too now.
So, I don't think her story was as effective as the son.
The son.
Because the son presented it in a way that we could all identify with. I think the daughter's, this is personal, my opinion, do not quote me on this, I will deny it. I think her little headgear is a turn off.
The roses?
The little thing, the roses,
Yeah.
it doesn't make her look like somebody that we want to get close to. But that's me, and I'm over 50, so it could be something that young people might like.
But I think in another way, it's showing that the parents are allowing their children to have
Yes.
individuality, and they're not trying to structure or shape their kids to look like what you expect kids to look like, and that's what's making people pay attention, because they are an example of a New York family, a white father, the mother, we're going into all of their stories. We're going into the mother's story, we're going into the father's story, and now we're interested in the kids, and it's drawing us all in and making them feel like these people represent us.
They're like
And we
us.
trust them, and now we care about them. We care about the family. We want to know where they're going to live, what are they going to do, You know, if they speak, we want to hear. So I realized that her look is unconventional, but slowly and surely, there are a lot of people with unconventional green hair, blue hair,
You know what I think
piercings.
is gonna happen? I think that maybe a lot of young women will start wearing the rosette. So I agree with you on that. But there was another story, and this was Anthony Weiner sitting on that stoop. Anybody remember? He was sitting on the stoop with his hand here. You remember that? When, oh my God. He's trying to sell himself for mayor, and he's sitting on a stoop like this. And he's saying, I'm so sorry, and I'm going to be a great mayor. So the way he told the story wasn't in any way compelling, in any way inviting for people to reconsider him once again. Okay, so storytelling is important in many, many arenas. Now, when you tell your story, you're telling your story for many, many reasons. And one of the things that you're doing is also branding yourself. And I hate to use that word, but what is a brand?
It's a lifelong lasting mark.
Okay, but labels change and brands change. Okay, so when I would think if I would come up with a brand for Elias, he's the boy from the Bronx that made it big, right? Okay, that's how I would summarize it. The young man from the Bronx that overcame obstacles and made it big. And so I want you, as I'm talking today, to think about like phrases like that that would fit your story. Okay, like I'm the girl who traveled back and forth from Puerto Rico to New York over and over again and still managed to succeed. Okay, so I want you to think about elements of your story that can become a brand. And it doesn't mean that it's yours forever, but you're doing that anyway. Because when you're on Facebook, you present a particular face to the world. When you're in your classes, you present a particular face to the world. And in American society, what you're asked, if you go to a party, it's not like a sit-down party like we are here. If I go to a party, I'm asked, how's your brother, how's your sister, what's happening with your husband. If I go to an American party, a middle-class party, what do you think I'm asked? No.
How's work?
What do you do? Okay? And you have to be ready to be able to give a spiel of a couple of minutes. Oh, I am the director of counseling at Lehman College, and Lehman College is blah, blah, blah. And I have to be prepared to say something very quickly in a bite about who I am and what I do. Okay? And so what I'm urging you is to begin to become prepared to be able to answer questions like that by picking elements of your story. Now, I gave you a handout because maybe you want to take notes as we go, but you don't have to. One of the questions that I want you to think about as we're talking today is, how have your experiences shaped you? So Elias talked about not doing well in high school, coming to Lehman, his father being ill, things kind of falling into his lap, but I'm not sure they quite fell into his lap. I think he experienced it that way. I think he was on that road and doors opened and he decided to go through. So those experiences shaped Elias. And what he said about being from the Bronx, and if you're from the Bronx and you get a problem, you're going to know how to solve it, especially a strategic problem. Because if you're on the 4 and the 4 isn't working and you are in Manhattan, what are you thinking?
Alternate.
You're going to get off at 149th Street and switch to the 2 or the 5, right?
Alternate.
You're strategizing already how you're going to solve that problem. Okay, and if you don't, you're going to be stuck on that train for a couple hours, right? Okay, so you're already strategizing. If you get home and there's no water, what do you do?
Boil hot water.
There's no water. Let's say there's no warm water. Right, we're all survivors, right? Right? And if there's no food, you look at the cabinet and you try to figure out what you can make with what you have. Okay, so we know how to do that, okay? And those experiences shape us. You know how to find a little corner somewhere to study. Okay, in my family was party family, and it wasn't drinking, it was just that they liked to talk into the night and everybody was welcomed at any time. So I learned to study at 4 in the morning.
It's a great time.
Because everybody was there, and if I told my mother, Mom, can they please leave so I can study? ¿Quién tú te crees que eres? Would have been my answer, right? So I would go to sleep early and get up at 4 and study. To this day, at 4 o'clock, my eyes go, even though I don't need to do that anymore. Okay, so our experiences shape us. We figure it out as we're going along. Now, one of the things that is important when you tell your story is the context. Elias was able to tell us a lot of details about his experiences in the Bronx because we're a small, intimate audience. And we are very much like him, okay? So he was able to share with us experiences that we would connect to. I'm not sure that he would tell the same story if he's addressing all the other fellows or when he was a fellow at the White House who went to Harvard and Yale and Princeton and whose families vacationed in Switzerland. I'm sure he would have picked other elements of his story to tell. Like, I graduated from Lehman, one of the best senior colleges in the CUNY system. That's how I would frame it. So I'm sure that he picked elements of his story depending on the context. And so I want you to think about what elements of your story are appropriate. I recently heard of someone who was, by the way, my goal in life right now is to become a grandmother. My kids are nowhere near getting married. Do not tell them that I said that I want to be a grandma, because then they'll never get married. So I went to this meeting, and one of my colleagues was all excited to tell her story of being a grandma. So we all congratulated her. We said, fantastic. I was turning green with envy. She then tells us a blow-by-blow account of the birth experience. And so, everybody was wanting her to stop because we didn't, we were happy for her that she was a grandmother. And so there are places where you can say something, and there are places where you should not say something. And so be always aware of the context. When, where, and for what reason, in terms of what aspects of your story you're going to share. Okay, have you ever been in a group where people overshares?
Yeah.
What does that feel like?
Uncomfortable.
Like what?
Awkward.
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 Sometimes I feel like I've been slimed. Do you remember like the Ghostbusters? Yeah, like, ugh. And so you have to, it's not to be embarrassed about your life, is that there are elements that you're going to pick when you tell your story. The other thing is that to be prepared, okay, and that's what this workshop is about. To have a story already that you can say it by heart. One of the persons here that can sell her department in 2 minutes flat, and she's not here today, is Nancy Cinton from the Career Services. Nancy will say, I'm Nancy Cinton, I'm the director of the Career Services, and we do this, and this. And I'm like, wow. Because she's prepared, she has a script. And she's done it a few times so that she has it. What I encourage people to do is to have more than one script. Depending on the situation, you pull up a particular version. You're all going to have to write personal statements when you apply to grad school, because all of you are gonna apply to grad school, right?
Yes.
And all of you are gonna apply to fellowships, right? Okay, so my personal statement, my husband used to say that it was my log cabin story. Because I would start my personal statements, they would all finish differently. I would say I'm a first generation Puerto Rican woman, born in New York City but raised in Puerto Rico. That was my first sentence. I think it was nicer than that. But that was what I wanted to say. You know why? Because I wanted to grab that audience and to tell them who I was. By the 20th time that my husband was looking at it and helping me edit, he was going, "Can't you say something else?" And so eventually I did change it. But you need to have a good first sentence when you're writing your story that's going to grab your audience, but also when you introduce yourself. You have to be thinking about that. So you have to be prepared. Now, most stories, and you can look at your handout, they have an intro, meaning that you kind of lay the groundwork. I'm a second generation, first generation Puerto Rican woman who went to school in the Bronx. Okay, that's the intro. And then most good stories have an obstacle or a challenge. Okay, so my obstacle and my challenge was that my family kept moving back and forth. So here I was in this brand new school. I would make friends, sometimes I had to fight because I was a newcomer. One time, I have a younger brother, and he's a coward. I will say that to his face today. And this is not part of the personal story that I normally tell, but he would say, he was short, he would say, "Don't bother me because my big sister will beat you up." So I would leave school all happy, and there would be these little boys waiting for me. Your brother said that you could beat us up, and I'm like, "Mom, I can't beat you up." And then I would have to negotiate with them, you know, like, what's going on? Let's figure this out. And so I think I got my negotiating skills from being 12 years old and having these 10-year-old boys ready to fight me. Okay, so that's part of my history. And I'm sharing it with you because even though when I was going through it, it was horrible, it allowed me to figure out how to be a negotiator. Okay, and so I want you to think about those kinds of experiences. So the obstacles in my life story were this moving back and forth. What were some of the obstacles in your life story? Okay, just think about them, just for a minute. Maybe you were the first one to go to college, and people would go, "I don't know why you need a degree. There are no jobs out there anyway." How many of you have heard that? A few of you, right? Okay. Leyendo, otra vez leyendo. Reading again? How many of you have heard that one? Your glasses are gonna get this thick if you keep on reading, I would hear. There's negative feedback that you get that become an obstacle. Okay, and then the resolution. How is it that you're able to overcome the obstacles? And so for me, it was just keeping on knocking on those doors. And my story is a little bit different than Elias because I didn't have people, I think you're blessed, Elias. I didn't have people dropping down, but I had doors and I would knock on them. You know, somebody would say, you know, I went to Hunter College High School for 1 year because they moved. When it was a girls' school, it was equivalent to the Bronx School of Science. And I heard on the playground that there was this great school called Hunter College High School for Girls, and I applied. Okay, so I knocked on that door, I get accepted. My family had no idea about what this was about. And we moved to Puerto Rico the following year. So then, you know, I found other doors. So I was the kind that would go down the hall and knock on doors. And your life may be a combination of both things. You may be the one that seeks the doors, and you may be the kind of person that people come to you, or both things may happen. But be ready for them and expect them. Okay? And finally, the last part of the story is, what gains have you made? So I'm gonna tell you a fairy tale. So he talked about Cinderella, right? Okay, so Cinderella was the stepsister. She had two evil stepsisters and a very horrible stepmother. That's the intro, right? What were the obstacles? She had to clean the house. What else? What were some of her other obstacles? They were mean to her. Okay, what else would have kept her from going to this ball? Her fear. Okay, did she have the clothes?
No.
Okay.
Well, you have to wait for it. Didn't she? Yeah, she did the clothes, but then they distorted all the clothes. But she
Okay.
had first the
Okay, so that, and there are different versions, but that version they messed up. In that version, she had the clothes and some, they messed them up. In the version that I got, she had clothes that were all messed up already. Yeah, they had patches and cinder and everything. Okay, so then what happens? Okay, so the fairy godmother says, you want to go to the ball? She could have said, no, I don't want to go. My mother's going to kill me. I don't have the clothes. She said, what did she say? Absolutely. Fairy godmother gets to the clothes, off she goes to the ball. Okay? So there's still problems. Why? Because she had a limit to how long she could be at the ball. So what was the limit? What was their next obstacle?
Wasn't it till,
That at midnight she had to leave. So she's running out. How many of you had run out or run to places and left things behind? The other day I left my iPad in a cafe. You should have seen me running. To go get that iPad. I got it. I have one of those backpacks that I use with the ropes.
yeah.
And so I put it over the chair and I left it. And I was, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But it was there. So she had to run out. And her obstacle was she had to get out of there quickly. What does she do? She leaves a shoe. Okay, she goes, oh my God, I left my shoe. She could have just drowned in that. But that ended up being her salvation because nobody else could fit into the shoe. And so we don't know the rest of the story. We know the happily ever after story. And like we don't know the rest of Elias' story. Okay, we know that he got to the White House. And we know that he will get further in life because he's the type of guy that will continue to pursue opportunities. Okay, that you're all here tells me that you're the same type of person as Elias and as myself. And as some of the people that have mentored you and as some of the people that have gone before you. So when you think about your story, you're thinking about all of these elements, okay? So you have to be prepared. And then the final thing is there needs to be a point to your story, okay? What happens when someone goes on and on and on and on and on and on?
get bored.
You zone out. How many of you have been in class and you're zoning out? Or you go to a lecture or whatever and you're zoning out. Or you're falling asleep. Okay, when I used to teach, I used to walk through the classroom and tap people. Most people didn't fall asleep. But if people who worked at night sometimes did, because I used to teach an 8 o'clock class. That's a horrible time. But there should be a point to your story. And you should know what the point is before you start to tell the story. The point of my storytelling to you today is that, like Elias, there were obstacles to my being where I am today. And I have a doctorate in clinical psychology, and it took a while for me to get there. But I'm very pleased and happy. And then God gave me the opportunity to be in a position that can help people that are a lot like me. So at the counseling center, we help students that come from backgrounds that are very similar to my background so that they can get help with the obstacles that are getting in their way. So it's like coming full circle, and that's the point to my story. I don't know what the rest of it will be. We'll see. Now, as a leader, as a leader, you need to be able to tell a story. And we started with that, with the presentation. The biggest, the most important aspect of telling your story as a leader is to connect with others, okay? And I don't know the gentleman who was behind when he talked about the family, how we're all connected to them because we know their stories now. So as a leader, you need to have the people that you want to help you in whatever you're gonna do. You need to be able to be connected with them. If you have someone who's up here and telling you, you do this, you do that, you do this, are you gonna do it? No. What do you need from somebody to be able to do it?
So that they can understand how it's going.
And somebody to be on your level, and to know what difficulties you have to overcome to do what you need to do. What else do you need when somebody's trying to get you to do something? You need to have a level of trust. Okay? Come on, you're saying things out. What else? You have to have respect. Okay, now, in my culture, I'm Puerto Rican, and a lot of you are Caribbean, we relate person to person. Okay? Every person has intrinsic dignity. And so if I'm walking through, the person who is cleaning the floors is just as important to me as the president of the university, because that's a person, okay? And so my leadership style is a person-to-person leadership style, okay? So I get to know who people are and they get to know me, okay? So that's a way of connecting to others, getting to know who they are, who their families are, what they're struggling with, like you say. But you have to figure out what's appropriate in what context. Okay, because not all contexts, if I go like that. My friend was working at Columbia Presbyterian as she's from Columbia. She was doing research, and they, on her first few days, the only other person who was Latina there was the cleaning lady. And so somebody saw her talking to the cleaning lady and then asked her to clean their offices. My friend, who was, and Elias was trying to say to you, and I think this is important, that you'll be in situations where you'll feel